Once upon a time, in a kingdom beyond rolling hills and quiet woods, there lived a widow who had 3 daughters, 1 eye, 2 eyes, and 3 eyes. The oldest daughter, 1 eye, had but a single eye in the middle of her forehead. The youngest, 3 eyes, was born with 3 shining eyes, 2 like anyone else, plus 1 sparkling in the center of her brow. The middle child, 2 eyes, appeared entirely ordinary by comparison. Yet for precisely this reason, her mother and sisters treated her cruelly. Mama Kessie was a widow. She had lost her husband many years ago to a sudden illness. In the wake of her grief, she channeled all her efforts into raising her daughters, each of whom was different in astonishing ways. Now, Mama Kessie's love did not flow evenly among her children, for she had a strange perception of beauty and worth. Shola, the eldest, was born with only 1 eye, situated right in the middle of her forehead. This single eye shone brightly like a polished onyx stone. Mama Kessie, intrigued by Shola's uniqueness, doted on her, believing that this singular feature set her daughter apart from ordinary people. Zahara, the middle child, had 2 eyes, just like most people in Ukuto City or anywhere else in the world, for that matter. Although Zahara's eyes glistened like morning dew, her mother saw no novelty in her. Because she was ordinary, Zahara became the target of her family's neglect. She was made to handle all the household chores, laundry, cooking, scrubbing the floors, and sometimes running errands late into the night. Tumi, the youngest daughter, was born with 3 eyes. The first 2 were in the usual places, and an additional 3rd eye sat above, near the center of her forehead. Mama Kessie was spellbound by Tumi's triple-eyed visage, perceiving it as a wondrous gift that deserved indulgence and praise. Though Shola and Tumi each bore an unusual feature, they shared a haughty demeanor when it came to Zahara. Being Mama Kessie's favorites, both older and younger sisters were showered with new clothes and extra servings of the best food Mama Kessie could afford. Zahara, on the other hand, wore hand-me-downs that were often stained and threadbare. She would receive leftover morsels after the rest of the family had eaten heartily. Inside Mama Kessie's small house, one could see the cracks in the walls, physical reminders of the family's financial strains. But in Zahara's heart, there were also cracks, formed by her mother's cold disregard and her sister's unkindness. Yet Zahara's 2 eyes were filled with a tender glow. She possessed a quiet strength, always willing to help strangers and offer a kind word to anyone in need. She fed stray cats in the alley and offered her seat on the bus to elders. She never complained about her responsibilities. Most nights, after completing her chores, Zahara would sit by the flickering bulb on the porch, gazing at the towering skyline of Ukuto City. She dreamed of a day when she might escape her family's scorn. Life was not easy. Mama Kessie, who worked selling vegetables at a corner store, had her share of frustrations. Sometimes, she came home with a scowl that deepened the lines across her forehead. Shola and Tumi often complained of exhaustion, though they rarely lifted a finger to help around the house. Zahara quietly picked up every undone task, whether it was sweeping dust off the stoop or washing clothes in a beaten-up plastic basin. When Zahara served dinner, Shola and Tumi would eat first, taking the choicest pieces of chicken or fish. Mama Kessie would join them, and together they would laugh at Zahara's expense. She can survive on the scraps, can't she? After all, she's just our 2-eyed sister. Nothing special about her. Shola would smirk, laughing at Zahara, and Tumi also mocked her, poor Zahara. If only she had been born with just 1 eye or maybe 4 eyes, Mama might have cared for her more. Mama Kessie merely nodded in agreement, slicing off the best parts of the meal for Shola and Tumi. These taunts, though hurtful, did not shatter Zahara's spirit. She washed the plates with diligence, occasionally brushing away tears that threatened to roll down her cheeks. If any of her neighbors noticed her sorrow, they rarely spoke of it. Life in a big city can make people focus on their own problems, leaving little room to intervene in someone else's troubles. On one afternoon brimming with heat, when the sun above Okuto city blazed like molten gold, Zahara finished her chores early. She decided to slip away to a quiet park on the outskirts of the city, a place rarely visited by tourists or wealthy folks. Tall palm trees swayed gently, their leaves hissing under the wind. Zahara sat on a wooden bench near the park's dry fountain, her eyes staring at the cracked tiles underfoot. She felt a swirl of sadness as she thought about the heavy load awaiting her back home, scrubbing Tumi's sneakers, ironing Shola's fancy outfits, and cleaning Mama Kessie's tall gear. She closed her eyes and let out a trembling sigh. In that lonely moment, she noticed something, or rather, someone, approach. A soft voice spoke behind her, laced with both tenderness and wisdom. "My child, why do you cry?" Zahara turned to see Auntie Dimbo, an older woman with a complexion the color of smooth ebony, wearing a faded wrapper dyed in bright African patterns. A coiling swirl of silver braided through her hair, and her smile was delicate yet kindly. Zahara quickly blinked away her tears, attempting to look composed. I am just tired, Auntie. That's all." The older woman eyed Zahara with an uncanny understanding. "You wear your heart on your sleeve, child. The city can be a harsh place, but I sense your burdens run deeper than mere fatigue," said Auntie Dimbo. Something about Auntie Dimbo's presence felt soothing, as though she had stepped out of a realm of forgotten stories. Hesitant at first, Zahara found herself sharing her sorrows. She spoke of Mama Kessie's disregard, her sister's harshness, and the hollow ache in her heart from never feeling loved. Auntie Dimbo listened without interruption, nodding sympathetically. Then, from the folds of her worn wrapper, she pulled out a slender ebony rod, etched with swirling patterns that gleamed under the midday sun. And she whispers to Zahara, "This rod holds a small piece of magic, a gift passed down from generation to generation in my family. Should you find yourself starving for food, tap it 3 times on any solid ground and chant. Ebony staff, heed my plea. Bring forth a feast for eyes to see. This should set a table of nourishment wherever you stand. But be cautious and keep it a secret from those who do not value kindness." Zahara stared at the rod, amazed. In an era of busy roads and smartphone screens, the notion of magic seemed far-fetched. Yet, a spark of desperate hope flared within her. She accepted the rod with trembling hands. "Thank you, but why me?" asked Zahara. "Because I have watched you, child. You have a pure heart, and the city needs more souls like yours," answered Auntie Dimbo. Before Zahara could gather her thoughts, Auntie Dimbo rose, nodded gently, and ambled away, disappearing into the row of palm trees. It was as if the scorching sun had swallowed her silhouette. Zahara found herself alone again on the bench. Unsure whether the encounter had been a daydream or reality, she touched the rod's carvings. They felt real enough beneath her fingertips. Her stomach rumbled, for she had had only a piece of bread that morning. Summoning her courage, Zahara rose and stepped onto a patch of cracked concrete. She tapped the rod 3 times, and chanted, "Ebony staff, heed my plea. Bring forth a feast for eyes to see. And suddenly, an aura of soft light enveloped her, and there before her appeared a small makeshift table, glowing gently. On it were dishes of jollof rice adorned with grilled peppers, roasted chicken marinated in rich spices, and a cold pitcher of hibiscus juice. The savory aromas made her mouth water. Overwhelmed by gratitude and disbelief, Zahara sank to her knees and devoured the meal, tears of joy streaming down her cheeks. Never had she tasted such satisfying flavors. It was far better than any meager leftover at home. When she finished, she wondered how to hide the evidence. As if sensing her concern, the table and all its contents faded into wisps of glimmering smoke. The ebony rod remained firmly in her grasp, but its swirling symbols seemed to pulse, as though alive. Zahara's heart pounded with excitement. She understood that she must guard this secret carefully, for if Shola, Tumi, or even Mama Kessie found out, she risked losing her newfound gift. Feeling energized, she walked back home, the sun already dipping behind high-rises in the distance. Time passed, and Zahara continued to slip away each day to conjure her private feast. At home, she still acted humble and refused to eat the crumbs Mama Kessie threw her way. Her sisters scoffed at her, sometimes tossing stale bread or leftover stew into a chipped plastic bowl, but Zahara politely declined. This did not go unnoticed. Shola's single eye was sharp and observant. Tumi, with her triple-eyed gaze, was even more vigilant. They detected Zahara's newfound energy and the faint smile on her face. It struck them as peculiar. Why would Zahara be so content when she received almost nothing? One humid evening, as the city lights winked to life, Shola cornered Tumi in the small corridor leading to their shared bedroom. Have you noticed how Zahara no longer complains about hunger? She barely touches the scraps we leave her. Yes. It's almost as if she's finding food somewhere else. We should follow her. Maybe she's been scheming behind our backs, suggested Tumi. The two sisters devised a plan. They would feign disinterest the next day, letting Zahara slip away as usual, and then quietly pursue her until they discovered her secret. At the break of dawn over Okuto City, with the raucous cry of roosters from a nearby yard and the rumble of bus engines carrying early commuters, Zahara performed her chores swiftly, washing Mama Kessie's vendor apron, rinsing the tiled floor, dusting the small living room. She waited until she believed everyone was either busy or napping. She took the ebony rod, concealed in a cloth bag, and left. Unbeknownst to her, Shola and Tumi trailed her from a safe distance. Passing through bustling alleys and weaving between honking cars, Zahara arrived at the same quiet park on the city's outskirts. She found her usual spot under a grove of acacia trees. As soon as she placed the rod against the ground, Shola and Tumi ducked behind a battered old street kiosk, peeking out just in time to see Zahara chant. Ebony staff, heed my plea. Bring forth a feast for eyes to see. The two sisters watched in absolute astonishment. A glowing table arose from the ground, shimmering as though made of polished brass, laden with fragrant dishes. Zahara tucked in, savoring every bite. Shola's eyes widened, Tumi's 3 eyes nearly bulged. She's been conjuring lavish meals while we thought she was starving, Shola asked. Tumi grits her teeth. Mama must know of this. We can't let her keep that rod to herself. They fled back home, excitement coursing through their veins at the prospect of revealing Zahara's secret. Their mother would be furious, and that fury might mean punishment for Zahara, and perhaps an opportunity for them to seize the magic rod for themselves. Later that day, Zahara returned home, her spirits high. The midday sun was fierce, but her belly was full, and she found renewed strength in the promise of Auntie Dimbu's gift. However, the moment she stepped onto the front porch, she sensed a tense energy in the air. Mama Kessie stood by the door with her arms folded, her face dark with anger. Shola and Tumi hovered behind her, wearing smug looks. "Zahara, my child, is there something you want to tell me?" Mama Kessie asked. Zahara blinked, her heart thudding like a drum. She realized at once that her secret might be out. Before she could utter a word, Shola interrupted. "We saw you conjuring fists in the park. You have a magic rod hidden somewhere, and you've been eating better than all of us." Mama Kessie's glare bore into Zahara. The old woman's lips pressed tight with rage she had been storing for years. "How dare you hide such a blessing? You are nothing but an ordinary two-eyed girl, yet you keep a precious gift from your own family." Mama Kessie's voice trembles with fury. In a flash of movement, Mama Kessie grabbed Zahara's cloth bag and yanked out the ebony rod. Zahara gasped, tears pricking her eyes. Zahara pleaded, "Mama, please, this was given to me because," but Mama Kessie would hear none of it. She swung the rod against the concrete wall of the living room, fracturing it into two jagged pieces. Shola flinched at the noise, and Tumi gasped with delight, expecting Mama Kessie to share the secret with them afterward. Mama Kessie snarls. "We'll see how you eat lavishly now. You ungrateful child." She tossed the broken fragments into an old metal bucket near the television stand. Zahara broke down in silent sobs, devastated at the loss of the one kindness she had known in so long. Zahara ran outside, tears streaking her cheeks. She wove through the crowded streets, past clothing shops blasting Afrobeats, past open-air stalls where vendors called out deals, past children playing soccer in a vacant lot. She did not stop until she reached the park again, her chest heaving. Collapsing near the broken fountain, Zahara cried into her hands. She felt hopeless, as though the last flicker of light had been snuffed out of her existence. Then, just as before, a calm presence enveloped her. Auntie Dimbu materialized, her wrapper stirring in the breeze, her eyes warm with compassion. "My child, you are weeping again. What happened?" she asked. Zahara told her everything, the sister's spying, Mama Kessie's wrath, the destruction of the ebony rod. Auntie Dimbu sighed softly, shaking her head in sorrow. "Do not lose hope. Sometimes blessings break, only to open the door to even greater miracles. Retrieve the broken pieces of the rod and bury them under the old baobab tree near the main highway. Let the moonlight fall upon that spot. Then wait." The older woman placed a comforting hand on Zahara's shoulder. Zahara sniffled, nodding. Even if it sounded impossible, she had no better alternative. Auntie Dimbu's directions had proven valuable once before. Back at home, Mama Kessie and the sisters were fast asleep. It was past midnight, but Zahara dared not let exhaustion deter her. She tiptoed into the living room and found the metal bucket where the snapped pieces of the ebony rod lay. She carefully wrapped them in old newspaper to avoid any noise. The city was quieter at this late hour, with only a few late-night taxis cruising the main roads. Zahara stuck to dimly lit side streets, hugging walls to remain unseen. After nearly an hour of walking, she arrived at the ancient baobab tree. It stood between the highway and a neglected playground, its trunk thick and gnarled with centuries of stories etched into its bark. The moon hung low, casting a silver glow across the patch of bare earth. Zahara dug a small hole at the foot of the baobab, burying the broken rod. Then she pressed her palms together, uncertain if she should pray or simply hope. A warm breeze wrapped around her, and she felt the slightest surge of calm. Zahara whispers to herself, Auntie Dimbu said to wait for dawn. She settled onto a nearby bench, worn down from weather and time, and gazed at the moon, fighting the urge to sleep. Her body ached from the day's events, but determination and heartbreak kept her awake. When the first light of dawn touched the sky, faint purples and oranges rippled across the horizon. Zahara rubbed her tired eyes and gazed at the spot where she had buried the rod. At first, she saw only scattered dirt. Then, gradually, an almost imperceptible trembling disturbed the ground. She watched in wonder as a thin shoot pushed upward through the soil, unfurling leaves that shimmered as if dusted with gold. Within moments, the slender trunk thickened, branches sprouted, and blossoms like stardust appeared in clusters. All this took place in eerie silence, accompanied only by the hum of a faraway generator powering an all-night bar. In less time than it takes to recite a morning prayer, a resplendent tree now stood in full bloom, its leaves reflecting the early sunlight with a radiant glow. Where the blossoms had been, orbs of fruit began to form, orbs that were silver in color with fleeting glints of emerald near the stems. Zahara's jaw dropped in sheer amazement. News of the miraculous tree spread quickly through Okuto City. It wasn't every day that a brand new tree appeared overnight near a busy highway. Soon, photos and shaky videos popped up on social media, capturing the shimmering branches. People posted hashtags like #silverfruittree and #miraculatukuta. Curious onlookers, taxi drivers, street hawkers, office workers, stopped by to gawk at the sight. Mama Kessie also heard about it from her stall patrons. She and the sisters hurried to the baobab area to see if the rumors were true. And there it was, indeed, a towering tree with a trunk of ivory-white bark and fruit that sparkled under the rising sun. Zahara, who had not left the spot, stood quietly to one side, watching the crowd. Her eyes were puffy from lack of sleep, but her spirit felt renewed. She realized that the transformation of the ebony rod might be far more significant than conjuring a simple meal. Mama Kessie, Shola, and Tumi elbowed their way to the trunk. The mother's eyes lit up with a feverish glow, while Shola and Tumi wore matching expressions of covetous excitement. If I could pick one piece of fruit, maybe I could sell it. I might earn enough to expand my vegetable stall, or move to a better neighborhood. Mama Kessie gasped and said to herself. She reached for the lowest hanging fruit, stretching her arms. But the moment her fingertips brushed a silver orb, the branch recoiled, swaying gently out of her reach. Shola tried next, straining on her tiptoes, but the fruit also eluded her. Tumi, with 3 watchful eyes, attempted a different angle, but the shimmering leaves rustled defensively, as if resisting any contact with them. The 3 of them quickly grew frustrated, inciting laughter and curious murmurs from the onlookers. Zahara, meanwhile, felt a nudge, some inner pull, prompting her to approach the tree. She hesitated, anxious that Mama Kessie might lash out again. But in her heart, she felt the tree somehow belonged to her, or she belonged to it. As Zahara stepped forward, the crowd parted slightly, sensing a shift in atmosphere. She reached out a trembling hand toward one of the low-hanging fruits. The branch bent graciously toward her, allowing the silver orb to rest gently in her palm. A collective gasp rose from the observers. And so, dear champions, our story does not end here. For now, Rest your minds but keep your hearts open, for the next chapter will bring revelations beyond what any of us could have foreseen. Thank you for watching. If you love this story, please remember to like this video, share the story with your friends, and subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming and inspiring African folktales. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Who was your favorite character? What did you learn from the story? And most importantly, watch out for part 2 of the story.